leave at 9:30. He left at 9:30. You might have got left, but anyhow, uh, it's some great experiences back about that time. But let me jump forward. After I got out of service, I was in the Navy and I was stationed up in Newfoundland for 2 years. And after I got home, we was sitting around on the hotel porch like we always did. And Thomas and Flynn and I had a great idea. We was going to get rich by going into restaurant business. So down below the town on the highway, Ms. Rogers had an American Oil service station. Now this station was next to Mr. Everett Wade's, great feller, kind of funny but great. And we I don't know how the name came up, but we named it to Toot and Tell It. So back at that time, you could buy a gallon of gas for 25 cents. So I remember at the time, there wasn't but a few cars in town, so uh, all the high school girls would get together and ride by, but they'd come down to the toot and they'd tell him they'd get 1 gallon of gas, 25 cents. That's all the money they had. But anyhow, the toot and tell it was made up by, we had a cafe and we had a service station and a wash racks and all that. And by the way, Thomas, he inherited the inside in the cafe, and I inherited the work outside as a service station. But anyhow, one time, when we first opened up, we decided we'd have music on the outside of the toot and tell it. So toot and tell it means you could drive up there and toot and then tell us what you wanted. But anyhow, we decided we'd hook up a speaker on the outside of the building, and best I can remember, that speaker was about 18 inches around. That's how big it was, and you can imagine what kind of sound it was going to make. And somebody came by and said, "Do y'all think Mr. Everett Wade's going to let y'all put up that music?" And we said, "We won't know, but in the morning we will probably." So that night we turned the music on wide open, and we was waiting the next morning to see what Mr. Wade was going to say. But he came across the road and he was laughing. He said, "Boys, y'all had some good music last night." And and that just goes to show you that what people tell you about people is not always true. He was such a good neighbor to us, and we stayed there till I got a job down at Chevron Oil in college. And that was in early 1952. Oh, this is Jack King, and I'm signing off for this time, but I'll be back with you sometime later. Thank you.
I'm Henry Badd, owner of Henry's Record Service and Garage in Mount Olive, Mississippi. Lived here all my life. Wouldn't live nowhere else. Been in business here since late 60s, early 70s. And if I had to move, I don't think I'd want to go nowhere else. But through the years, I've had a lot of coffee drinkers and storytelling going on here, and some of it was good and some of it was bad.
My name's Bryson Hayden. I am 40 years old, and farming has been a part of my life, most of my life. I grew up around farming and voluntarily had my hand in it as much as possible. We always had gardens and crops mostly, but my heart was always more focused on livestock. I didn't get the opportunity to really farm until about 5 years ago. We began to try to put together a cow-calf operation. My children and myself and all of us really enjoy the farming life. We enjoy it because of being able to be together and do something we like. We enjoy it because of its connection to creation and the fact that we are dealing with the way things used to be on a constant basis. We also enjoy the feeling of knowing that what we're doing is truly feeding the world. Even though we play such a small part as a small farmer, we do have a part, and we try to do that to the best of our ability. We are very, very fond of the rural life. There's nothing in the world like standing in a pasture with cows that you're raising and watching them work, watching them graze, watching them produce, and knowing that if we do things the way they should be done, ethically and with hard work, we can produce something that will not only give us great satisfaction, but will be exactly the way God intended it to be. We are so fond of the fact that in the farming life, we have other farmers, especially in our area, who are willing to pitch in and help, who are willing to work together. We're not in competition, we're on the same team, and we're constantly trying to improve not just our own stock, but our area, and giving our area a better name for what we can produce. Our family, all my kids, my wife, all of us love farming, and we hope that this tradition will continue through our kids and even our grandkids. We're blessed to live in a rural area of the great state of Mississippi. Mount Olive, Mississippi has been good to us, and we hope we can get.
Okay, my name is Helen Jones. I've lived in Mount Olive all my life. I love Mount Olive, a small town. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody loves everybody. It's just amazing to live in a town where there is so much love and togetherness in one small town.
Hi, I'm Sandra Sullivan. I have lived in and around Mount Olive my entire life, which is about 72 years. So I do know a little about our hometown, Mount Olive. I was reared on a farm, and my daddy was, of course, a farmer. We raised cattle, and he also did some raised crops like cotton. And of course, we always had a garden. And the thing that I remember most about my daddy and about what he would do for the farming, it must have been in those days they passed traditional planting hints down, which now some people call superstitions, but actually it was not superstitions. It was based on traditions where the people before them have learned that things really work that way. And a lot of planning is based on the moon. You know, if the moon is dark at night or if it's light at night. I know one thing that he would do, plants that grow under the ground were supposed to be planted in the dark of the moon. But plants that produced above the ground were planted in the light of the moon, which, you know, if the moon was bright, then you planted plants that came, that would grow and the fruit would be displayed outside the ground. So that was one thing I remember about that tradition, which that was based on what they felt like the moon did. And another thing that he always did that just always tickled me, we talk about the 12 days of Christmas. Well, he had the 12 days after Christmas, and like the 26th, that represented the first month of the next year, which was January. So if it rained on the 26th, he would write on the calendar, you know, rained that day, and he knew that would represent January, and so on and so forth. If it was cold one day, it was supposed to be cold that month. I always found that just terribly interesting, and so he did a lot of things. A lot of it I don't remember, and I wish that I had written so much of that down. But, you know, that's just sort of my background in living in rural Mount Olive.
My name is Judy Tony. I grew up as Judy Chain, about 3 miles east of Mount Olive. But Mount Olive is my hometown. I've loved it my whole life. I've been here 60 years. I'm 60 years old. Did my kindergarten through 12th grade at Mount Olive Attendance Center. Went back to work there in 1985, stayed there 30 years and worked there on the staff at Mount Olive Attendance Center. Mount Olive has always been dear to me, everything in Mount Olive. But living in the country side, it made it a little more difficult for me to be with my friends who were in town. But we found a way through football games and that sort of thing. But living in the country made me appreciate being able to go to a small town, because even though I didn't live in town, everyone there knew me and I knew them. And it was, it made me appreciate what a small town had to offer. They had everything I needed. It might not be what everyone else needed, but it gave me comfort. I attended church in Mount Olive my whole life. Our church has since burned, but I appreciate the people in Mount Olive. For instance, right now, I often go by Powell's Drugstore because it was a favorite of mine to go into as a child, and it's still a favorite of mine to go into because of one lady in there. Well, all of them in there are my friends, but there's one, Miss Helen, and she gives the best hugs. If you ever need a hug, go see Miss Helen, because you will come away feeling a whole lot better than you were when you went in. And it's people like that make small towns. People like Paula, people like my teachers that were in school when I was there. And then I got the pleasure of working with some of those same teachers that taught me. That's what, to me, small town life is about, and being able to connect with everyone, whether they're in town or out in the country like I was. We connected. We had similar beliefs, similar values, and that made it all worthwhile to me. And today it even means more to me. The older I get, the more I find that I was blessed to be able to experience something a lot of people hasn't in America, because I had the best of both worlds. I had country life and I had small town life. And the two made me, I think, along with my parents, the person I am today. It made me respect everything and everyone in our town and in America. Nature. I love to take pictures of the old buildings in town. My school that I attended and worked at, I love to take pictures there. But I love to go out in nature and take pictures, and I do all around surrounding Mount Olive. I love flowers. I love animals. I love the Okatoma Creek that runs through Mount Olive. I take pictures of everything and they're just for me. They're for that's the way I relax. That's the way I calm myself. I've never sold one. I've never tried to sell one. It's just for me. It's my hobby other than reading. Reading calms me, but I've found that the older I get, the harder that is to do. I can't stay awake. So I start reading and I read myself to sleep. So photography, I love. I'm not good at it. I just love it. And that's what being in a rural area means to me. I can go out and do it, and everybody knows what I'm doing. If I'm pulled over in their driveway and I'm out beside the road, oh, that's just Judy taking pictures. And they go on about their business. They don't worry about it. They know what I'm doing. And that's what I like. People know me, I know them.
Hi, my name is Ebony. I work at Green Tree Family Medical Clinic in Mount Olive. I've been working here for 10 plus years. I love working in a small town due to everybody know everybody, and it's a friendly atmosphere. I love traveling the back roads, looking at different scenery, and enjoying the beautiful gardens and different fields. That's what I love about the town, this small town.
I'm Bill Powell, pharmacy owner here at Powell Drugstore. We'll just take a few minutes to tell you a little bit about the history of this building and this store. This two-story structure was built somewhere around 1902 to 1903. It was built by Graham Calhoun, who was a pharmacist. The bottom floor has been a pharmacy throughout its history. The upstairs has had several people to do different things. It's had Dr. Turner, that was a dentist. Mr. Graham's brother, Edwin, had a law office upstairs for a while. Probably the most famous member, or the most beloved, was Dr. Calhoun, who was up there from 1930s until his death in 1970s. Been a lot of change in the town, a lot of change just in medicine itself, but the building has stayed pretty much like this. We've got the same floors, the same ceilings. It's come through a long time in pretty good shape. It's had a lot of good times and had some dark times. One of the darker times it's had was in 1937. A new drug had come out called elixir of sulfanilamide. It came from a very reputable pharmacy, and Dr. Calhoun really believed in that company. And he prescribed it to about 13 of his patients. And he gets a text, not a text, but a telegram, and a few days later, and they tell him that the elixir is just absolutely poisonous to his patients. And a lot of people, a lot came from that. A lot of doctors never admitted using it, but Dr. Calhoun went and tracked down every customer he had, or patient, him and Mr. Graham, and sadly, 6 or 7 had already died. Even Dr. Calhoun's best friend had died from it. But he searched out every patient until he could find every drop of it, and a lot of physicians and pharmacists were scared that it would ruin their practice, but actually, it made Dr. Calhoun that much more beloved because it showed his compassion and his love for his patients. And when Mr. Graham had the store for over 50 years, and in 1956, he sold it to Ernest McCraney. And Mr. Ernest kept it for a few years, and then my dad bought it in 1960. And he loved it. He loved coming to work. He worked until almost the day he passed away. He stayed here. And it's seen a lot of things. And one of the reasons I came back in 2004, Dad was getting on up in age, and things were changing, and technology was changing a lot, and it was either time to come back and try to help, or it'd run its course. And as growing up in this store, the store almost feels like a I know it may be strange, but it almost feels like a person. It's almost living and breathing, like a lot of old stores. They have so much history, and they can tell so many stories. You always hear if these walls could talk. If these walls could talk, what would they tell us? When this store opened, right now we're going through a pandemic. Times are hard, and but when these doors opened, there wasn't polio vaccines. You had children dying at early ages with simple things like pneumonia, diphtheria, and all like that. And all those have vaccines now. And I wonder what Dr. Calhoun and Mr. Graham would think. How far things have come. You think this old building would finally tell you, if you just stick the course, you'll make it through. We've seen worse. And even when Dad passed at his funeral, I remember people always talking. They always told me, your dad taught me to read. He always talked about he had a comic book stand up there, and he never sold a comic book, but he'd have 6 or 7 kids reading every day. And I think he enjoyed that. And as things change, a lot of things stay the same. So, but we're proud to be here. And we've hoped we've provided a service for 100 or so years, and maybe if we're lucky, this old building will hang around another 100. So, come see us.
And I've noticed over the entire United States that people are beginning to move back to rural. They first went to suburbia, and now they're kind of wanting to come back to rural United States. And so I feel like that that we've got a lot going here in Mount Olive, and I just love to go to Mount Olive and shop because, you know, it's so wonderful when you walk in the drugstore or the bank or the grocery store or the library. Everybody says, "Hi, Sandra." You know, everybody knows everybody else. They're better. It's better to meet your needs when somebody knows about you. And not only that, just the camaraderie on the street. You know, you'll bump into somebody, stand there and talk for 10 or 15 minutes and go on and tend to your business. I was pleased that my children, I went to school at Mount Olive. My children all went to school at Mount Olive High School, and they graduated, and they've gone on to make good, decent lives for themselves. And I'm very proud of that. But there's just so many things that's wonderful about growing up on a farm. You know, you learn so much. You learn, you know, how calves are born, for instance, and how to plant crops. And this past summer, with my little grandson, we planted watermelons from seed. And he got to see how, you know, the seed grew. Then you transplanted it maybe twice. We transplanted it to a larger bucket, and then we planted it in the ground. And we would have to water it because we the water faucet was pretty close by, so we connected a hose, and he would water his watermelons. He thought he was doing something, and so we even got some produce from those watermelons. So that's just one of the things that you learn by being on a farm. In the town of Mount Olive, going back to just, you know, seeing people in town, I remember when I was, I guess, in the late 50s and the early 60s, a lot of people don't know this about Mount Olive, but we had 2 cotton gins. At one time, we had 3, but I know we had 2 cotton gins, and we had even department stores. Calhoun store just had all kinds of things. It was sort of like a Walmart. You had clothing, any type of clothing that you wanted. Then you had groceries, anything for your house. It was really pretty amazing. And Walmart probably got that idea from these small towns that did this. Also, in addition to Calhoun, right across the street, you had Polk's, and it was a department store. And my mother worked there for a while when I was growing up. But I can remember going to town on Saturday afternoon. That's when all the farmers went to pick up necessities. But also, you know, sort of like going to church to have some fellowship too. And we would go sometimes on Saturday afternoon and maybe go to the movie, which was a